crack of wood splintering under an axe, smoke rising from a villa once filled with marble and laughter, the sound of foreign tongues echoing in the marketplaces of Rome. When people picture the fall of the Western Roman Empire, they imagine hordes of barbarians charging over its walls with swords and fire. But the truth is far stranger and far more unsettling. Rome wasn't destroyed in a single night of invasion. It rotted, collapsed, and was reshaped from the inside out. And the so-called barbarians weren't just destroyers. They were neighbors, allies, soldiers, even kings within Rome's own borders. So what really brought down the empire? And why did the very people Rome once mocked as savages become its unlikely heirs? To understand how the barbarians brought down Rome, you have to go back to the 4th century AD, when Rome still seemed invincible. Its roads stretched across continents, its legions guarded frontiers from Britain to Mesopotamia, its emperors, draped in purple, sat at the center of a world that had lasted for centuries. Yet beneath the marble and gold, cracks were forming. Rome had always defined itself against the barbarians, a word it used for anyone beyond its borders, from the Germanic tribes in the north to the Persians in the east. To Romans, they were outsiders, shaggy-haired warriors with no cities, no philosophy, no culture. But this was propaganda. In reality, these groups had rich traditions, powerful leaders, and a deep understanding of the empire they lived beside. By the late empire, Rome was no longer conquering. Instead, it was defending. The Rhine and Danube rivers marked its frontier, but constant pressure from migrating peoples pushed against these fragile borders. Climate shifts, population pressures, and new enemies like the Huns forced tribes westward, straight toward Rome. The empire was about to learn that walls can only hold back desperation for so long.
The barbarians didn't just crash into Rome with blood and fire. They entered slowly, and often by invitation. In 376 AD, the Goths begged to cross the Danube, fleeing the unstoppable horsemen of Attila's Huns. Emperor Valens agreed, granting them land inside the empire. But corrupt Roman officials exploited them, extorting food and selling them dog meat at outrageous prices. Desperation turned to fury. Within 2 years, the Goths revolted, culminating in the Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD. There, they annihilated a Roman army and killed the emperor himself. It was one of the worst defeats in Roman history. This was the turning point. Rome realized it couldn't keep the barbarians out, so it brought them in. Entire tribes were settled inside Roman provinces as foederati, allied peoples bound to defend the empire in exchange for land. Ostrogoths, Franks, Vandals, and Burgundians all became Rome's reluctant partners. But loyalty was thin. These tribes were not truly Roman. Their first allegiance was to their own chieftains. And yet, paradoxically, barbarians also became Rome's defenders. They filled the ranks of the legions, often fighting other tribes on Rome's behalf. By the 5th century, the Roman army was a patchwork of Germanic warbands. When the empire needed soldiers, it turned not to Italians, but to the very outsiders it had once scorned. Rome was arming the people who would one day take its place.
By the early 400s, barbarian power inside Rome had reached its peak. The Visigoth leader Alaric, once a commander in the Roman army, marched his forces into Italy itself. For years he demanded recognition, payment, and land. The Romans stalled, bribed, and negotiated, but eventually Alaric ran out of patience. In 410 AD, his army sacked the city of Rome. For the first time in 800 years, the Eternal City was breached. But here's the detail most people forget. Alaric didn't burn Rome to the ground. He allowed churches to stand, protected many citizens, and left after 3 days. This wasn't mindless destruction, it was a statement. The barbarians weren't outsiders anymore. They were power brokers. Rome's destiny lay in their hands. In the decades that followed, other tribes carved the empire apart. The Vandals, sailing across the Mediterranean, captured North Africa and choked off Rome's grain supply. The Burgundians established their own kingdom in Gaul. The Franks spread through northern Europe. Rome wasn't toppled by a single invasion. It was slowly hollowed out, province by province, until the empire existed in name only. By 476 AD, when the Germanic commander Odoacer deposed the last Western emperor, Romulus Augustulus, there wasn't even much of an empire left to destroy. Rome had already been remade in barbarian image.
Why did this happen? The barbarians didn't bring Rome down with brute force alone. The deeper truth is that Rome's decline was a slow internal collapse. Its economy was strained by endless wars and heavy taxation. Its bureaucracy grew corrupt and bloated. Its armies were more loyal to their generals than to the emperors in Ravenna. The barbarians were both symptom and cure. They entered the empire because Rome needed them. It needed their soldiers, their labor, their settlements. But by depending on them, Rome gave away its autonomy. Over time, the barbarians stopped being guests and became masters.
And yet, what followed wasn't the end of civilization. It was its transformation. The so-called barbarian kingdoms preserved much of Rome's culture. They adopted Latin, converted to Christianity, and ruled from former Roman capitals. The Franks became the foundation of modern France. The Visigoths built kingdoms in Spain. Even the word Vandal, once just the name of a tribe, survived as a symbol of destruction. But look closer, and you see continuity, not chaos. Roman law, Roman roads, and Roman religion lived on. The barbarians didn't destroy Rome so much as recycle it into something new. Without them, there would be no medieval Europe, no modern West. So the real question isn't how the barbarians destroyed Rome. It's how Rome survived through the barbarians.
The fall of Rome was not a single bloody moment, but a slow unraveling. The barbarians didn't just storm its gates. They walked its roads, wore its armor, served in its legions, and eventually sat upon its throne. Rome's enemies became its heirs, and through them, Rome never truly died. History is rarely about destruction alone. It is about change, and the people we once called outsiders often shape the very heart of the world. If you enjoyed this story of the barbarians who reshaped Rome, consider subscribing to the channel, liking this video, and sharing it with fellow history fans. Because the past isn't just a tale of empires falling, it's a story of how humanity rebuilds.